The first thing I saw when the cab turned onto Harbor Lane was my house with the porch light on. The second thing I saw was my neighbor dropping a laundry basket in the middle of her yard and running toward me barefoot like the grass was on fire. I'd been back on American soil for 4 hours after 6 months at sea with the Navy. I had imagined a lot of things during those last lonely nights on watch. A hot shower, a real cheeseburger, my own bed. Maybe the quiet relief of unlocking my front door and pretending I wasn't hoping one particular woman would notice I was home. I had not imagined Lena Brooks sprinting across our patchy shared lawn in cut-off jeans, a faded blue t-shirt, and no shoes, yelling my name with so much feeling that my driver actually slowed down and said, "Buddy, I think somebody missed you." I was 29 years old, a Navy electronics technician with a duffel bag full of wrinkled uniforms, 3 books I hadn't finished, and the kind of emotional restraint that made people assume I was calm when really I was just terrified of wanting too much. Then Lena hit me like a warm summer storm. Not literally, almost. I had one boot on the curb and one hand on my sea bag when she reached me, stopped herself at the last second, and stared at me like she needed proof I was real. "Caleb," she said. "Just my name." After 6 months of radio checks, rank, last names, orders, and bad coffee, hearing her say Caleb nearly took my knees out. "Hey, Lena." That was all I managed. Brilliant, I know. Shakespeare would have retired out of shame. She looked thinner than when I left, but not fragile. Lena was never fragile. She had the kind of face that made you want to learn what had put the little line between her brows there, and then spend the rest of your life making it disappear. Dark hair coming loose from a clip, green eyes bright in a way that could mean tears or temper. With Lena, it was often both. "You said Thursday," she said. "It is Thursday." "It's Wednesday." I blinked. "No, it's Caleb." I looked at my watch. It was still set to ship time. "Right," I said. "Well, technically somewhere I'm punctual." Her mouth twitched. There it was. That little almost smile that had lived in my head somewhere between the hum of engines and the black water stretching forever. The cab driver cleared his throat. "You want the bag, sailor?" Before I could answer, Lena grabbed the strap of my duffel. "I've got it," she said. "It's heavy. I carried your dead fern out of your living room in July. I can handle emotional baggage." My fern died? It gave up in the second month. Very dramatic. I held a small service. I laughed and the sound came out rusty. For 6 months, Lena had been the woman next door who sent me photos of my mailbox after storms, complained about the raccoon that treated both our trash cans like a buffet, and wrote emails that started with practical updates and somehow ended with me smiling at 2 in the morning. She had been my neighbor for almost a year before I deployed. We weren't dating. We had never kissed. We had never even said out loud that something lived between us, though it had been there in the way she brought over soup when I worked late, and the way I fixed the loose hinge on her back gate and then stayed an extra hour because she opened wine and dared me to tell her one interesting Navy story that didn't involve wiring. I hadn't asked her to wait for me. That seemed unfair. My father had been Navy too, and my mother spent half her marriage staring down driveways and pretending she didn't hate the sound of suitcases. I promised myself early that if I loved someone, I wouldn't make her life a calendar of departures. So I kept Lena in the safe category: neighbor, friend, woman I thought about far too much under a sky full of stars. Now she was standing close enough for me to smell laundry soap and summer grass, with my duffel strap over her shoulder like she had a right to it. "You're barefoot," I said. She glanced down as if this surprised her. "I noticed. You ran across the yard." "Also noticed." "Why?" Her eyes lifted to mine and the banter slipped for half a second. "Because I saw you get out of that cab," she said quietly. "There are moments in life when the body understands before the mind does." Mine took one step closer to her. Lena didn't step back. The cab drove away, leaving us in the late afternoon stillness. A sprinkler ticked somewhere. A gull cried over the marina. My porch light glowed, even though the sun had not fully dropped, and I realized she must have turned it on. "You kept the light on?" I asked. She looked toward my house, then back at me. "Habit? You have a habit of turning on lights in empty houses?" "I have a habit of arguing with you in my head and losing." That did something to me. I had survived rolling seas, 12-hour watches, homesickness that sat on my chest like iron, and the deep male stupidity of refusing to admit that I missed one woman's laugh more than I missed dry land. But Lena Brooks saying she argued with me in her head almost ended me right there on the curb. I reached for the duffel strap. My hand covered hers by accident. Neither of us moved. Her fingers were cool, mine were calloused and probably smelled faintly like ship, airport, and regret. She looked at our hands, then at me, and for one suspended second, the whole neighborhood faded. "You're really home," she said. "I am." "For how long?" There it was. The question I had avoided in every email. 3 weeks leave, I said. Then Norfolk for reassignment. Short rotation, probably. At least for a while. Her face changed so fast I almost missed it. Relief first, then caution. Then something guarded, like she was locking a door I hadn't known was open. "Shore rotation," she repeated. "Yeah, that's good." "It is." "Then why do you look like you're about to apologize for it?" "Because you looked relieved, and I wanted that relief to mean what I hoped it meant." Instead, I said, "Because I forgot how to talk to people who aren't standing in formation." She gave me a soft, dangerous smile. "Good thing I don't take orders well." "No," I said. "You really don't." She laughed, but her eyes shone. Then, without asking permission, she stepped forward and hugged me. Not the polite kind of hug people give at airports. Not the stiff, careful squeeze of friends who don't want to make things awkward. She wrapped both arms around me and held on. I closed my eyes. For a second, I was back at sea, standing under a hard white moon and reading her message for the 10th time because she had written, "The neighborhood is too quiet without your terrible truck starting at 6 in the morning." For a second, I let myself put my arms around her and feel the shape of home. She fit against me like she'd been missing from there. Then she whispered so quietly I almost blamed it on the wind, "I told myself I wouldn't do this." My arms tightened before I could stop them. "Do what?" She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her hand stayed against my chest. My heart, traitor that it was, hammered right under her palm. "Run," she said. "Hug you. Act like I had any right. You have the right." The words came out before I could make them safe. Lena's lips parted. That was when the front door of my house opened. Not Lena's house. Mine. A man stepped onto my porch holding a yellow envelope, wearing khakis, a navy blue polo, and the uncomfortable expression of someone who had just interrupted something he shouldn't have seen. Lena went still. I looked from him to her. "Caleb," she said, and her voice had changed completely. "Before you say anything, there's something I need to explain." For one ridiculous second, my brain tried to make sense of the scene as if I were still on deployment. Unknown male, secured residence, neighbor with key access, yellow envelope, possible threat. Then the man lifted one hand and said, "Sorry, I knocked, but nobody answered, and Ms. Brooks said you were expected sometime this week." Lena's grip on my shirt tightened once, then dropped. "Caleb, this is Mr. Bellamy," she said. "He owns Bellamy Restoration." The man nodded. "Welcome home." I stared at him. Then at my open front door, then at Lena. "Restoration?" Lena tucked a loose piece of hair behind her ear. She only did that when she was nervous. I'd learned that through 6 months of carefully not counting how many details about her I'd memorized. "There was a storm in August," she said. "You told me a branch came down." "A branch did come down." Mr. Bellamy winced. "Through the corner of the roof." My gaze snapped to her. "You said it missed the house?" "I said it missed the porch swing." "Lena." She lifted her chin, stubborn as a flag in high wind. "You were in the middle of the ocean. What was I supposed to do? Email you, 'Hi, hope your classified equipment is behaving. Also, your guest room has a skylight now?'" Despite everything, the corner of my mouth pulled up. "That would have gotten my attention." "It got mine too when rain started coming through your ceiling." Mr. Bellamy cleared his throat. "She handled it fast, saved you a lot of damage. Roofs patched, drywalls done, flooring in the back room replaced. I just came by to drop off copies of the invoices and warranty paperwork." I looked at the envelope like it was a grenade. "How much?" Lena's eyes narrowed. Don't start. Oh, I'm starting. Then stop. Did you pay for repairs on my house? Temporarily. That is not an answer. It's absolutely an answer. It's just one you don't like. Mr. Bellamy had the good sense to look at the trees. I dragged a hand over my face. I was tired enough that the world had soft edges, but not tired enough to miss the way Lena stood between me and the truth, like she might be able to physically block it. How much, Lena? She folded her arms. Less than it would have cost if I let your house rot while you were gone. That is also not an answer. No, but it's still true. Mr. Bellamy held out the envelope. There's a payment schedule inside. Mrs. Brooks covered the deposit and first stage. Insurance reimbursed most of it after the claim cleared. What's left isn't bad. I took the envelope slowly. Insurance? Claim? Deposit. While I had been counting days by duty rotations, Lena had been standing in my waterlogged guest room, calling contractors, arguing with insurance, and protecting a house that wasn't hers. Protecting my home. I looked at her and something in my chest loosened so sharply it hurt. You didn't tell me, I said. Her expression softened. You sounded so tired in your emails. I was tired. Exactly. I still would have wanted to know. I know. She looked down at her bare feet in the grass. That's why I didn't tell you. Mr. Bellamy took a backward step. I'm going to leave you two to it. Thank you, Lena said quickly. He nodded to me. Good to meet you. Everything's solid now. She made sure of that. When his truck pulled away, silence settled over the yard. I should have been angry. Maybe a normal man would have been. But all I could think was that Lena had been alone in my house during a storm, standing under a leaking ceiling, choosing to carry a problem that belonged to me because she thought it would give me one less thing to worry about at sea. You had no right, I said quietly. Her face closed. I know. And you had every right, I added. She blinked. I stepped closer. Both things can be true. That sounds like something you learned from a ship chaplain. No, from trying to understand you. That made her mouth tremble. I hated that, not because it made her look weak. Lena crying would never make her weak. I hated it because I hadn't been here to see how much she had taken on, hadn't been here to carry even half of it. You should have told me, I said. You would have worried. Yes. You couldn't do anything. I could have known. Her eyes lifted to mine. There was the wound, not the roof, not the money, the knowing. I didn't want to be another weight, she whispered. I forgot the envelope, forgot the open door, forgot the cab exhaust still hanging faintly in the warm air. You were never a weight. She laughed once, small and unbelieving. Caleb, you were the opposite. I took a breath. There were easier things to say, safer ones. I had spent half a year using them. Some nights, your emails were the only part of the day that felt like mine. Her eyes went glossy. Your terrible truck started in one of my dreams, she said, like a confession. I woke up mad because it wasn't real. I smiled despite the ache behind my ribs. You hate that truck. I missed hating it. That did it. I reached for her hand. This time it wasn't accidental. Her fingers slid into mine like she'd already decided, and the simple pressure of her palm against mine felt more dangerous than any storm. She looked down at our joined hands, then back at me. What are we doing? She asked. I was hoping you knew. Absolutely not. I ran across the yard barefoot. I'm clearly not the strategic mind here. You looked pretty strategic when you were arguing with the contractor. That's different. Drywall doesn't look at me like that. Like what? She stepped closer, challenge flickering through the shyness. Like you forgot the rest of the world has people in it. I didn't answer because she was right. The rest of the world did have people in it, but at that moment, none of them mattered. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles. Once. Careful. Asking. I had imagined kissing Lena 100 times and talked myself out of every version. On her porch after she made me taste the pie she swore was terrible. In my driveway the morning I left, when she stood in a sweater with her arms wrapped around herself and smiled too brightly. in the middle of the ocean when loneliness made cowards honest. But now she was here, barefoot in my yard, having kept my house standing and my porch light burning. I don't want to repay you, I said. Her brows pulled together. What? I mean, I will. For the repairs. Every cent. But that's not why I'm standing here holding your hand. Oh, I swallowed. And if I ask you to dinner tonight, it won't be because I'm grateful. Her lips parted and her eyes went soft in a way that made me feel like I had stepped off a pier and found the water warm. Then why? She asked. Because I have wanted to take you to dinner since the night you stole my socket wrench and claimed it was community property. You left it on my steps. I was fixing your gate. And doing it very slowly. I liked your company. I know, she said. I laughed under my breath. You knew? Caleb, you explained hinges for 20 minutes. No one likes hinges that much. Heat crawled up my neck. You let me. I liked your company too. The air between us changed. She wasn't just receiving what I offered. She was meeting me there, step for step, brave enough to be honest when I had spent months being careful. Dinner, she said. Tonight? You just got home. I can stay awake. You look like you might fall asleep standing up. Then breakfast. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. Her smile finally broke free, full and bright and aimed directly at me. A date? She asked. The word landed between us like a flare. I squeezed her hand. Yes, a date. Not a thank you breakfast. No. Not a neighborly meal. Definitely not. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. My pulse kicked. Lena, I said, and my voice came out rougher than intended. Yes? If I kiss you right now, it's not because you fixed my roof. Her smile turned unsteady. Good. Because if you kiss me right now, it better be because you spent 6 months thinking about it. I bent my head. Longer, I said. Then I kissed her. It was soft at first because I was still learning what I was allowed to want. But Lena made a small sound against my mouth and stepped into me, her free hand curling around the front of my shirt, and all my careful restraint went overboard. I kissed her like shore leave, like sunrise, like the first deep breath after coming home. When we finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against my chest. Welcome home, Caleb, she whispered. I held her there in the yard, the envelope crumpled in my fist, my front door open behind us, and for the first time in 6 months, home wasn't a place. It was Lena, barefoot and breathless, choosing me back. I slept 14 hours, not on purpose. I meant to unpack, shower, read the contractor paperwork, and maybe stand in my guest room admiring the ceiling Lena had apparently saved from becoming indoor weather. Instead, I sat on my bed to take off one boot and woke up the next morning with one boot still on, my phone dead, and a folded note on my nightstand. You looked deceased. I removed the other boot. Breakfast at 9 if you're alive. If not, I'm keeping your good skillet. L. I stared at the note for a full minute, smiling like an idiot. Then I realized it was 8:47. The fastest shower of my life still took too long. I showed up on Lena's porch at 9:06 with damp hair, a clean shirt, and the kind of nerves I had not felt since my first day in uniform. She opened the door before I knocked. You're late, she said. I was unconscious. Excuses. You stole my boot. I saved your circulation. She wore a yellow sundress, simple and soft, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. No shoes again. Apparently, Lena Barefoot was going to become a medical condition for me. I forgot every clever thing I had planned to say. Her smile tilted. You're staring. I've been at sea 6 months. My social skills are under repair. That wasn't a denial. No, I said. It wasn't. Her cheeks colored and she stepped aside to let me in. I'd been inside Lena's house before, but never like this, never for a date, never with the memory of her mouth still living on mine. Her kitchen smelled like coffee, butter, and cinnamon. 2 plates waited on the small table by the window. She had put flowers in a mason jar between them, little white ones from the wild patch near the fence. You did all this? I asked. I poured cereal into bowls with great emotional commitment. I looked at the table. That is French toast. Fine. I panicked romantically. The word romantically made something warm unfold in my chest. I like your panic. Good, because there's bacon too. I sat across from her, and for a while we managed to pretend breakfast was about food. It wasn't. It was about her bare ankle brushing mine under the table and both of us going still. It was about her laughing when I got syrup on my thumb and then going quiet when I licked it off. It was about the strange sweetness of looking at someone in morning light and realizing you had crossed a line you never wanted to uncross. So, she said, pushing a strawberry around her plate, do we talk about the kiss? I was hoping to schedule a follow-up. Her eyes flashed up. That's your official report? My official report is classified. Coward. Sailor, I corrected. Same problem. Better posture. I laughed and she grinned at her coffee cup. Then the grin softened. I don't want to pretend it didn't happen, she said. My fork stopped. I don't either. And I don't want you to think I kissed you because I was overwhelmed, or because you came home and I got sentimental, or because I accidentally developed a hero complex involving your roof. Lena. She drew a breath. I kissed you because I wanted to. Because I have wanted to for a while. The honesty in her voice stripped every defense I had. I reached across the table, palm up. She looked at my hand for half a second before putting hers in it. I wanted you before I left, I said. I wanted to ask you out. I didn't because I thought leaving right after would be selfish. Deciding for me was not your finest moment. I know. I'm an adult woman, Caleb. I pay taxes. I argue with insurance companies. I can decide whether a man is worth missing. My throat tightened. And was I? I asked. Her fingers squeezed mine. Annoyingly, yes. I laughed, but it came out rough. She rubbed her thumb along the inside of my wrist. It was such a small touch, but it found every lonely place I'd hidden from. I was scared too, she admitted. Not just of missing you, of being ridiculous. Falling for the man next door who fixes gates and leaves for months and writes emails about ocean sunsets like he doesn't know they sound romantic. They were meteorological observations. They were poetry with coordinates. I stared at her. She smiled. I saved them. All the air left my lungs. You saved my emails? Not all of them. Lena? Fine. All of them. I stood before I thought better of it. Her eyes widened as I came around the table. Are you about to gloat? No. Good, because I can still take back the bacon. I held out my hand. She took it, confused, and rose. The kitchen was small. There wasn't much space between the table and the counter, but I pulled her gently into that space anyway. What are you doing? She whispered. Choosing you on purpose. Her expression changed. That line between her brows appeared, the one I wanted to smooth away, but this time it came from tenderness. I cupped her face. Not because you kept an eye on my house, not because you waited at the mailbox, not because you did anything for me, because you're you. Because you make me laugh when I don't remember how. Because I heard your voice in my head when things got hard. Because I'm home, and the first place I wanted to be this morning was here. Her hand settled at my waist. You're very dangerous after coffee, she said softly. I haven't even finished the cup. Then kiss me before you become unstoppable. So I did. This kiss was slower than the one in the yard. Less surprise, more promise. Her hand slid up my back and mine found her waist, and for a few breathless seconds the whole world narrowed to cinnamon on her lips and sunlight on her hair. When we parted, she stayed close. I need to tell you something, she said against my collar. My body went still, but I kept my hands gentle. Okay, she pulled back. When the roof got damaged, I used the emergency key you gave me. I know. And after the contractor started, I kept going over. To check things, air out rooms, make sure nothing smelled like mildew. Lena, that's fine. I found the little wooden box in your closet. My stomach dropped, not because there was anything terrible in it, because there was something honest in it. Her eyes searched mine. It fell when one of the workers moved the storage bins. I wasn't snooping, it opened. And I saw the letters. Letters from my mother, photos, a postcard my father sent from deployment before he missed my 10th birthday. A ring that had belonged to my grandmother and, according to my mother, should be given only when I was brave enough not to repeat the men in our family. I put everything back, Lena said quickly, but I saw one letter. From your mom. The one about not making love feel like waiting. I let go of her and stepped back, not because I wanted distance, but because the room had tilted. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have told you sooner. I looked at her standing in the warm kitchen she had prepared for me, brave enough to confess something that could ruin the morning. And I realized this was the moment I usually retreated. Turned emotion into a locked room. Made myself easy to miss because I never fully arrived. I didn't want to be that man with her. My dad was gone a lot, I said. My mom loved him, but it cost her. I watched it. I promised myself I wouldn't ask anyone to live like that. Lena's face softened. So, you left me no choice. Yeah, I swallowed. I thought I was being honorable. You were being lonely. The words landed clean. I nodded. She came to me then, not rushing, not fixing, just closing the space I had made. I don't need you to promise you'll never leave, she said. You're Navy, I know what that means. I need you to promise you won't disappear while you're standing right in front of me. I took her hand and pressed it to my chest. I promise. Her eyes shone. Good. And I'm sorry I made decisions for both of us. You should be. I was excellent girlfriend material all this time. Girlfriend? Her chin lifted, though her cheeks went pink. Hypothetically, I smiled. I'm very interested in testing that hypothesis. She laughed, and I kissed her forehead because I couldn't help it. Then my dead phone charging on her counter buzzed to life. Once, twice, then again. Lena glanced over my shoulder. I saw the notification preview from my commanding officer. Call ASAP reassignment update. The old instinct hit first. Brace, lockdown, pull away. But Lena's hand was still over my heart, so I looked at her instead. Whatever it is, I said, I'm not disappearing. She nodded, scared but smiling. Then answer it, sailor, I'll be right here. I took the call on Lena's back porch because I needed air, not distance. Air. That distinction mattered, and I made sure she knew it before I stepped outside. I'm not running, I told her. She leaned against the kitchen counter with her arms folded, trying very hard to look casual and failing beautifully. I didn't say you were. You had a face? I have many faces. That one said, if he turns emotionally unavailable, I'm throwing his skillet into the bay. It's a quality skillet. I smiled despite the knot in my stomach. Then I answered the call. 6 minutes later, the knot had become an anchor. My commanding officer was direct, as always. Shore rotation was still coming, but the timeline had changed. A training billet had opened early in Virginia. They wanted me there in 10 days, not 3 weeks. After that, 8 months minimum. Stable hours. No deployment on the immediate horizon. Good news professionally. Personally, it felt like someone had stolen 13 days from my hands. When I came back inside, Lena had cleared the table but left my coffee untouched, covered with a saucer to keep it warm. The sight nearly undid me. She turned from the sink. How bad? Not bad, I said. Just soon. Her shoulders lowered a fraction. Soon, like 10 days. The word sat between us. 10 days to be home. 10 days to fix what 6 months of silence had bent out of shape. 10 days to figure out what Lena and I were brave enough to become. She dried her hand slowly. Virginia? I nodded. Norfolk area, training command. Not a ship? Not right away. That's good. It is. She waited. I hated how well she could already read me. But, she asked. But I wanted more time here. With your house? She asked softly. I looked at her. With you. Her expression trembled, then steadied. She crossed the kitchen and stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the tiny freckle near her left cheekbone. Caleb, she said, 10 days is not nothing. It's not enough. No, it isn't. She touched 2 fingers to the center of my chest, right where her hand had been before the call. But if you use that as an excuse to start saying goodbye early, I will be furious. I'm trying not to. Try harder. A laugh broke out of me, helpless and surprised. Her mouth curved. There he is. You're bossy. You like it. I do, I said. The words came out lower than I meant them to. Her eyes warmed. I reached for her waist and she came willingly, hands sliding up my arms. For a minute we just stood in her kitchen, holding each other in the ruins of our first date breakfast, the future pressing at the windows. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Neither do I. That doesn't scare you? Yes. She tilted her face up, but not as much as pretending I don't want it. I bent my head and kissed her. There was nothing frantic in it, no trying to erase the phone call or deny the calendar. It was a choice. A slow, deliberate yes. Her fingers curled at the back of my neck, and when she sighed against my mouth, I felt something inside me stop bracing. When we parted, I rested my forehead against hers. Come with me tonight, I said. To Virginia? That escalated. I laughed. No, dinner. Somewhere that doesn't involve me falling asleep in your French toast. You didn't fall asleep in it. I considered it. She pretended to think. A real date? The kind with shoes? Her eyes dropped to her bare feet. Ambitious. I'll pick you up at 7. You live 20 feet away. I'll still pick you up. Should I make you wait on the porch? Absolutely. Should I come out and ask if you're the man my mother warned me about? Only if I get to say yes. Her smile turned soft enough to hurt. All right, she said. 7. I spent the rest of the day doing practical things badly. I unpacked half my sea bag, discovered my guest room looked better than it had before the storm, and read the repair paperwork with mounting awe. Lena had negotiated down costs, documented every receipt, and left sticky notes in the margins. Insurance adjuster tried nonsense here. I handled him. Do not pay this twice. Yes, I know you hate the paint color. You're welcome. I stood in the repaired room, laughing quietly to myself, and realized she had left pieces of herself all over my house. Not intrusions, care. At 7 sharp, I stood on her porch in a button-down shirt I had ironed twice and still not improved. The door opened. Lena stepped out wearing a dark green dress and silver earrings, her hair pinned up, except for one curl that had escaped near her jaw. Also, shoes. Little strappy sandals that made her legs look long enough to ruin me. I forgot how doors worked. Words, too. She glanced down at herself. Bad? Devastating. Her cheeks flushed. That better be a compliment. It's a warning to the general public. She locked her door, smiling. You clean up pretty well yourself, sailor. I ironed. I can tell you attempted something. Ouch. She slipped her hand into the crook of my arm. Don't worry. I like a man with reachable flaws. The restaurant was a seafood place on the marina, casual enough that I didn't feel trapped, nice enough that Lena looked like she belonged in candlelight. We sat outside under string lights while boats rocked softly in their slips and the sky turned violet over the water. For once, I didn't talk about leaving. We talked about everything else. She told me about her work restoring old books at the county archive, how she loved saving things people assumed were too damaged. I told her about the petty war aboard ship over the last decent coffee mug. She laughed so hard at my impression of Chief Morales that the couple at the next table stared. Then the breeze lifted a strand of hair across her cheek, and I reached over before thinking. May I asked. Her laughter faded into something quieter. She nodded. I tucked the curl behind her ear, my fingers lingering at her jaw. Her skin was warm from the sunset. She leaned barely into my touch. You keep asking permission like I'm going to change my mind, she said. I'm trying to do this right. Doing it right doesn't mean never being bold. I let my thumb brush her cheek. Noted. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. Dinner went unfinished for a minute. Afterward, we walked along the marina, her hand in mine, our shoulders bumping. Near the end of the pier, she stopped beside a weathered bench. This is where I came the night your roof got hit, she said. I looked at her. After the contractors left. I was soaked, furious, and scared. I'd made the wrong choices. I sat here and wrote you an email about Mrs. Alvarez's cat instead. Why? Because I wanted you to answer. She looked out at the black water. If I told you the truth, you would have called, and I would have fallen apart. If I told you about the cat, you'd write back something dry and ridiculous, and I could pretend things were normal. I stepped behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. She leaned back against me like she had been waiting all day to fit there. I'm sorry you had to be strong alone, I said. She covered my hands with hers. I'm sorry I didn't trust you with my messy. I want your messy. She turned in my arms, eyes bright. Careful. I have a lot. I have storage space. Your guest room does have new flooring. I kissed her there under the marina lights, smiling against her mouth because she smiled first. By the time I walked her home, the night had softened around us. At her door, she didn't let go of my hand. I don't want 10 days to feel like a countdown, she said. Then we won't count down. What do we do? I looked across the yard at my porch light, then back at her. We build something that can survive distance. Her fingers tightened. That sounds serious. It is. She opened her mouth, but a voice cut across the dark. Lena. We both turned. A man stood near the sidewalk, half in shadow, holding a bouquet of roses like an apology he'd bought on the way over. Lena went rigid beside me. The man's eyes moved to our joined hands. I guess, he said bitterly, this is why you stopped answering my calls. Lena's hand went cold in mine. The man stepped closer, roses hanging at his side. He was tall, polished, the kind of guy who probably owned shoe trees and said things like circle back without irony. I looked at Lena first, not at him. Her face had gone pale, but her chin was up. Who is he? I asked quietly. My ex, she said. Colin. Colin laughed once. That's it? Just my ex? Lena's fingers tightened around mine, not asking me to rescue her, anchoring herself. That's all you are, she said. I'd liked her so much in that moment it hurt. Colin's jaw flexed. I drove 2 hours because you wouldn't answer. That should have told you something. I wanted to talk. You wanted me alone. His eyes cut to me. And you are? I felt the old Navy switch inside me, assess, control, neutralize. But Lena shifted closer and answered before I could. He's Caleb. He's with me. With me. 2 words and suddenly the whole night changed shape. Colin heard it too. His face twisted, more wounded pride than heartbreak. You move fast. Lena actually laughed, sharp and unbelieving. I waited 2 years for you to choose me, Colin. Then I spent 6 months missing a man who made me feel more seen from the middle of the ocean than you did from across a dinner table. Don't talk to me about fast. The roses drooped. I said nothing because this was hers. She stepped forward, still holding my hand. I stopped answering because we were done. Not because of Caleb. Not because of anyone else, because I'm done begging someone to love me in a way that doesn't make me smaller. Colin looked from her to me like he expected me to apologize for standing there. I didn't. Finally, he set the roses on her porch railing. You'll regret this. Lena's voice softened but didn't weaken. No, I already regret enough. For a second, I thought he might argue. Then he turned and walked back toward his car. We stood in silence until his taillights disappeared. Only then did Lena exhale. I turned to her. Are you okay? No. She looked at the roses, then at me. But I'm proud of myself. You should be. Her mouth trembled. I hated that you saw that. I didn't. You were standing right here. I saw you choose yourself. I brushed my thumb over her knuckles. And then you chose me out loud. I'm not going to pretend I hated that part. A breathy laugh escaped her. Then she stepped into me, wrapping both arms around my waist. I held her under the porch light with the unwanted roses beside us and the night settling soft around our shoulders. I don't want to be someone you run to because I'm safer than him, I said into her hair. She pulled back, eyes fierce. You're not a hiding place, Caleb. No? No. She touched my face. You're the man I wanted before I knew if wanting you was allowed. My chest went tight. I'm allowed? I asked. Her smile broke open. You're encouraged. So I kissed her at her front door, not to erase Colin, not to prove anything to anyone, but because Lena had chosen me and I wanted her to feel me choosing her right back. The next 10 days did not feel like a countdown. They felt like building. We painted my guest room a color Lena called coastal fog, and I called gray with better marketing. We ate takeout on my floor and argued over where the bookshelf should go. She made me buy new porch bulbs because, according to her, returning sailors deserve mood lighting. I fixed her back gate properly this time, and when I took too long, she stood beside me with lemonade and said, "Careful, if you explain hinges again, I'll know you're flirting." I am flirting. Then continue. So I did. On my last night before leaving for Virginia, we sat on my porch swing, her legs tucked under her, my arm around her shoulders. The whole street was quiet except for crickets and the distant sound of the marina. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. She looked up. You're allowed to say that? New policy. I like it. I took a small key from my pocket and held it out. She stared. Caleb. It's not a test, not pressure, just truth. I placed it in her palm. You already made this place feel like home while I was gone. I want you to have a key because I want you in my life, not because I need someone to check the pipes. Her eyes filled. I don't want to be your emergency contact house sitter. You're not. What am I? I swallowed. The woman I'm falling in love with. Her breath caught. The words frightened me less once they were out. She climbed into my lap right there on the porch swing, hands framing my face. Good, she whispered, because I'm already there. Then she kissed me like a promise that didn't need perfect timing to be real. 10 days later, I left. But this time, I didn't disappear. We talked every night, sometimes for hours, sometimes for 6 minutes while I ate vending machine dinner in a training office. She mailed me ridiculous notes inside old book pages she couldn't restore. I sent her sunrise photos from Virginia and labeled them meteorological observations just to make her accuse me of poetry. 3 months in, she visited Norfolk. I took her to a diner near the base, and afterward we walked along the water while gulls screamed overhead like badly managed children. She slipped her hand into mine and said, I could get used to missing you less. 6 months later, Lena moved her book restoration work to a conservation lab in Virginia. Not for me, she insisted while carrying a box into our little rental house 2 blocks from the bay. For better humidity control. Of course, I said. And because your skillet missed me? Naturally. And maybe because I love you. I set the box down and crossed the room. That one seems relevant. She smiled. A little. A year after the day she ran barefoot across the yard, we went back to Harbor Lane to pack the last of my things. The repaired guest room was empty, the porch swing creaked in the same old rhythm, and her house next door had a sold sign in the yard. Lena stood in the grass between the 2 homes, barefoot again, holding my grandmother's ring on her finger and laughing because I'd just told her I still had 1 boot untied. I looked at her in the golden evening light and thought about the cab, the dropped laundry basket, the wild run across the yard, and the way I had once believed home was something you came back to alone. I was wrong. Home was Lena running toward me before either of us had the courage to name what we were. Home was a porch light left on. Home was her hand in mine as we walked away from 2 houses and toward 1 life. What would you have done if you came home after 6 months away and your neighbor dropped everything to run barefoot across the yard to you? Have you ever experienced something like that, where someone's reaction told you the truth before their words did? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.